Hello, guys. Welcome to episode 57 of Learn and Become podcast. And today we have Deborah and her friend with us, and she's going to introduce us and take it from here. So thank you, Deborah.
You're welcome. So this is Hannah. She's one of my friends here in the United States. We've been living in El Paso for, 2 years now? 2 years. And she was nice to accept this invitation to be part of the podcast with Andre. And we're going to be talking a little bit of learning and her impressions of being around people who are English second language speakers, and also herself as a second language speaker of another language that I'm not gonna say right now. We can say it a little bit. let's get the suspense on. Anyways, we're gonna get there. But yeah, so Andre, do you wanna start with a question for Hannah or something? Any curiosity you'd like to share? Actually, first, how are you? You gotta ask that question on the podcast.
I'm good. I'm doing well.
So do you want to talk a little bit about you, just like in general?
Okay. My name is Hannah, and should I say what I speak now?
Sure.
So I have the unique opportunity of spending a lot of my childhood in Germany. So I learned German by immersion, but I also took it in school. So even after I moved back to the US, I still learned German. And I've also traveled a lot. So I've had the unique opportunity wherever I've been. I mean, a lot of people do know English, so that's kind of a good universal language, but also I've had to deal with people when we don't speak each other's language a lot. So yeah, I think it's really cool. I think language is a really beautiful thing. I wish I knew like 5 languages, but it blows my mind that like it's really cool watching Deborah with her son and her husband being able to speak English and then Portuguese. Like I very much admire that. And then like, man, my brain, like I speak another language, but I'm like, man, could I do that every single day? Like that's really intense.
Yeah, it can be sometimes. I agree with that, because sometimes I can't really switch fast enough for Portuguese with Victor, and then sometimes I'm speaking English with him, and I'm like, I feel like I'm not saying with the intensity that I want to say. And sure enough, he listens so much better when I say something in Portuguese instead of English. It's like, oh, that's her serious voice. I should probably listen, kind of behavior, So yeah. So I know it's hard to switch sometimes, but that's cool. I didn't know that that you actually studied Germany in the US as well. I thought it was just while you were in Germany. How long were you living?
So I lived there a couple times throughout my childhood, but combined probably over 10 years.
10 years. So you were born and lived there until you're 10?
It was like on and off. So I was like 2 to 3, and then like 7 or 8 to 16 kind of thing. And I, a little bit around that. I'm not very good with numbers, but
Cool.
Back and forth.
Cool. And both with the military, right?
Yeah. Yes.
Okay. So did you live in a military base both times you were there?
So when I was very young, but then the second time, no, we lived in a little German village. And
that's awesome.
so yeah,
that's really cool. Any questions on where you want?
And how many languages do you speak? You said you want to speak 5.
Yeah. So English and German. I did study abroad in Italy, so I knew like conversational Italian for a minute, but it's been a long time since I did that in middle school. I learned Latin for a year or 2, but again, I can remember one phrase. So really I say English and German now. I used to count Italian, but it's been so long that now I don't. But I might be able to brush up on it if I needed to.
I'm sure you would, because Nick, he doesn't practice his Portuguese as often. He always like, oh, my Portuguese is so much worse. And I'm like, yeah, give 5 minutes in the conversation and you're gonna be like back to good.
Yeah.
And a lot of the time. Well, how long were you in Italy, you said?
I was just there 4 months,
4
so it's
4, you said?
4 months. Yeah.
Okay.
So, but it felt like a lot longer.
Yeah. Yeah, that's cool.
Yeah.
And how many countries have you visited in your life so far?
Oh, that's a good question. My recent travels were to Asia. So I went to Japan and Singapore, Nepal, Indonesia, uh, and other country. But yeah, so last place was Asia, which is very different than English. So that was a cool experience. And then I've traveled all around Europe, more as a kid. So I'd like to go back as an adult, but yeah.
Yeah, that's the experiences that I look forward to provide to our family, since we might be living in Germany someday. And it will be so awesome. Like we were talking yesterday, right? We were saying homeschooling. You were homeschooled, right? And I was telling her, like, imagine you like teaching history to your kid, like literally living history with your kid, right? Not just like teaching it in books and stuff, but actually seeing it, history happened and happens every day. So that's kind of cool. So I look forward to that when I have, if or when, I don't know, have the experience to live in Germany. Yeah,
Like
I
if,
really hope to
I
get
hope
that
when.
experience. Yeah, me too. It all depends if the military will want to take us there or not. So
And out
hopefully
of
they will.
all of the countries you've been to, which one was your favorite and why?
Ooh, that's a good question. Recently, just because I've been to Asia most recently, I really enjoyed Japan. I really liked, it was the quietest and the cleanest city, like Tokyo, that I've ever been to.
Yeah.
And I really like just their kind of way of living. They're very conscientious towards other people. Like even their bathrooms, and public bathrooms are very nice. You can press sound so no one else has to listen to you go to the bathroom. Like just things that, like, but that's so nice, for other people. And, yeah, just, they have some beautiful nature areas and some of the culture there and the food. I mean, I love all the food. So I would say Japan is probably my most recent favorite country.
Yeah, that's cool.
And people say, I mean, we experience that when we go to other countries and we eat our country food in that country. So like about Japan, is the Japanese food you eat in the US the same that you ate there? Did it taste the same?
I mean, I've had some good sushi in America and I've had some good ramen, but even like if you're walking down the street and go into a no-name place in Japan, it's like the best you've ever had. So like probably a world-class place in America. And even the stuff in the grocery store, they have the 7-Eleven convenience stores. You get like a couple dollar like sushi sandwich snack, and it's better than a restaurant quality here in the US, and it's at a gas station there. It's amazing. It's crazy.
But did you know that I wonder what you would think of Japanese food in Brazil, because Brazil has the second largest Japanese population in the world.
Yeah, I didn't know that.
Yeah. So if you go to like these areas where Japanese live, they have really good Japanese, and Brazilian Japanese in Brazil is so food is so much better than Japanese here. Like every time I eat here, it's like,
yeah,
it's
I'm
okay.
in El Paso, like.
But even in Colorado, which I've been and had the good Japanese there, but it's still like Brazilian Japanese is really tasty and cheap. I like that part too. Very cheap. Here it's so expensive.
Yeah,
very expensive. That's cool. And like when you were in your travels, how did people react to those? Did you have any time where you encounter people that didn't speak English and you didn't speak their language? How did they react to that interaction? Because this can be pleasant or it can be really awful. So
Yeah.
I think, you know,
Yeah, I think my biggest thing is, well, I found out about the Google Translate when I was in Asia. And so I would use that sometimes. And I think the biggest thing is you just have to be nice. Like being nice and smiling and trying goes a long way. So even if you, and this was in Germany too, like one thing our mom always told us growing up is even if you only know how to say like hello and start the order, but then you can't finish or you can't finish the sentence, at least you trying helps set up that good communication, and they know that you're trying, so they're willing to kind of meet you in the middle. So I think that's really important with another language, or even someone that speaks English but maybe not so well. There was definitely some very broken English. Like, I mean, I was, when I was in Nepal, I was hiking and going through villages where, I mean, yeah, they don't speak English, or they know kind of some English, but they just know words, like they don't know phrases. So you very much have to meet in the middle. But if you're coming from a good place, and you're maybe doing some signs or showing pictures or using Google Translate, you usually can figure it out. But yeah, if you're in a negative space, or you're like, I want to just understand and don't have patience, then it's not as fun. So yeah.
and as in a general manner, like if you think about not yourself, because you're a very nice person. So for sure your opinion is going to be biased by your personality and how nice you are. So, but in a general term, you here in US, how do you feel that Americans in general, how do they deal with those encounters where people don't speak in English, but they are here in the country? How, what do you think it's the most common, or like if you were going to generalize how you would do that?
I would say, I mean, in general, very general terms, I feel like a lot of Americans aren't as well traveled, I would say. And some of them unfortunately have the mindset of like, this is America, we speak English. Like if you don't speak English or try, then, boo on you kind of thing. And so they are a little less patient and less understanding, which is unfortunate. And I don't think that's everywhere by any means, but definitely some areas of the US are probably different. And that's the thing is, there's nice and there's mean people everywhere you go. So, but I would say just because it depends. So if you go to an area that's a bigger tourist city, I think they're going to be used to tourists and people that don't speak English. So they're probably going to be a little bit more understanding. If you go to like a small town country place where they've never met someone that doesn't speak English well, they probably are not going to know how to deal with that as well. Yeah. So,
and to add to that, because I have those experience on the other side, right? I'm the second language speaker, and I agree with what you said, that Americans tend to be like nice and nicer if you are actually trying. And that's the big key. And I think that's true for any country. Like even in Brazil, when I was in Brazil and we had Americans over our college, the people who didn't speak English were always thinking that the American thought they were full of themselves because they didn't even try Portuguese. So the first group of Americans that actually attempt to try Portuguese around everybody were the most loved ones by everyone. Everyone liked them because they tried. And it's just so, it's not even a matter of saying the right words, the right sentences, or like making conversation perfectly and clear. Is really about, I am really trying here, and I'm sorry if I'm failing miserably, but I'm really trying. So, and I think that's true for everywhere. And we are not in a touristic area. However, there are so many Latin Americans here and so many Latin people that I feel like I get annoyed when people expect that I speak Spanish. It's like, I don't.
Yeah,
You
yeah.
know, so it's like I don't really speak Spanish. I live in
No.
America and I don't know Spanish, you know.
And
No.
people get
Yeah.
mad, like, how come you speak Portuguese? It's so similar.
They never
You're
really
like-
question that. When I say I speak Portuguese, people are like, "Oh, that's cool," you know. But that's the thing. Until there are so many people here that doesn't even speak English; they only speak Spanish. That my conversation doesn't even go that far because they literally stop talking and move on, you know.
Mhm.
Or they really speak a very broken English that is like, okay, I don't think this is working kind of situation, right?
Mhm.
So I think my annoyance, and I think that would be the annoyance of most people, is that expectation that you will try really hard to communicate with me here, instead of let's take steps to the middle, you know.
Mhm.
I think that's the hardest part.
Yeah.
I think in those encounters is like asking the person to come in the middle with you. So
Yeah, it's an interesting dynamic, especially because you look like you could speak Spanish.
Mhm.
I don't look like, I mean, I look very white. So, so I get asked sometimes if I speak Spanish, but not as often. Whereas my husband, who's more Hispanic looking, they'll just speak to him in Spanish, and you know, he'll say in his broken Spanish, like, I don't speak a lot. I mean, he tries, but yeah, they're like, and then they, you know, make fun of him for not speaking Spanish or whatever. So, yeah, that's an interesting dynamic just based on how you look.
yeah,
Um,
that's
They
already
treat you different either.
Yeah.
Because they're like, oh, you know, she's white, so she doesn't speak Spanish. That's fine.
how funny
But
would
you're
be
not
if
white.
you
You're
didn't
not
speak Spanish and I didn't.
Right?
That would be funny.
Yeah, then they would
They
really
would
make
be
fun of
very
you.
confused. It's like, wait, how does that happen?
But it's interesting how the appearance changes their attitude.
Yeah, they
And
do.
that's, you know, and that's just even in this little community here. But
Yeah.
but that's interesting because I bet, you know, if you're traveling in a different country, but you look like you could speak it, they might be more fed up easier, you know, frustrated. You
Yeah.
know, like me in Asia, obviously I'm not Asian either. So they know, okay, she probably doesn't speak. But if I looked Asian, I bet they might get frustrated with me because they're like,
Yeah.
you should know it, you know?
Yeah,
So
True.
that's interesting too.
that's very true.
And about communication and just like general experiences in your travels, what was the nicest experience you got to have with like somebody that couldn't really speak English, and then you went like hand gestures, facial expressions, and all that to communicate? Did you have any
Yeah.
cool experience with that?
So one of my favorite experiences ever, and this was in Japan, I went to, I was staying at an Airbnb and I went to a hot spring and I was just looking for a place to grab dinner on the way home. And I was more in like more of a residential village. And so I saw a sign for like sushi and I was like, ooh, okay. So I walk in and it's this little tiny bar and there's a bunch of guys sitting at this bar. And so I don't really know where to sit. And, you know, I walk in and I was like, can I eat? And he didn't speak any Spanish. And this was, I think, or in English. And I wasn't sure how it worked because they didn't really have a menu. It was all written on the chalkboard. And, you know, I couldn't understand any of that. So I basically, in the broken Japanese I knew, and through Google Translate, I was just like, oh, what do you recommend? Like, I'll eat what you recommend. So I realize now, like in sushi restaurants, when you do that, it's the chef's special. So it's just, they kind of bring you whatever. And so I sat down in the corner, like all the guys that were hanging out and having sake and sushi together, like scooted over, and they were kind of like cheersing to me. And so I was eating, and I remember I was eating the sushi, and I remember I put too much soy sauce on one of my sushi rolls, and they were like, no, no, no. And he didn't even let me eat it. He took it away and then was like, no, like you dip. And so he showed me how to eat it. And then they had me try some sake. And then, so basically we're kind of teaching me this culture, and without words, just kind of hand motions and things like that. And then when it gets to the end of the meal, he gives me a little sake cup, and then he didn't even let me pay for the meal. And it was this really nice, 5-6 course meal. But basically through our hand gestures and our smiles, we made kind of that rapport. And so I ended up, taking a selfie with him and was thanking him. And yeah, he wouldn't let me pay. So it was just overall a really cool experience. And I learned, how to eat the dishes and use the chopsticks even. So without talking, they shared that with me. And it was definitely it was definitely a guys' night hanging out. So I was, obviously a single female who was white at this place, at this little tiny sushi place. So that was one of my favorite experiences.
That's cool.
Yeah.
That's amazing. The lesson is being nice is more important than speaking the language.
All right.
Yeah, a lot of times. Yeah.
That inspire go a long way, doesn't somebody says then?
Yeah. Yeah. That's
So I agree with that statement, Andre. And that's very cool. And that's the thing. The reason I invited you to come here is because Andre sometimes is talking about people that get shy. And because of that shyness, they have fears. And then because of their fears, they don't even try. So they don't use their broken English. They don't use their English at all, even though they've been doing years and years of school sometimes. They can be doing 10 years in English as a second language in Brazil, and they still don't speak one word. And it's the other reason is because they can break that wall where they just feel so scared to try.
Yeah.
And I was like, well, I would like to show the impressions of somebody who actually speaks the language, and
It's definitely like jumping in a pool or something. It's like you're going to be cold if you don't jump in the water, and if you jump in the water, so you might as well just jump in the water. I know when I was in Italy, I was more so than any other country, I was really scared to speak Italian, like when I studied abroad there, because I think some of my schoolmates, they spoke Italian better than I did. And Italians are very especially where the city I was in, they a smile could help you, but they're very much more business, city, so they don't have time kind of attitude. And some places, again, every place is different, but in general, I wasn't as comfortable in the city to speak, but when I traveled outside of the city, I was more comfortable in that broken language. So I think also the area that you're in, when you're in a city and it's more fast paced and people don't have time for you to be slow, and it can be really scary. And
that's why I always tell, when I was teaching English, I always told them take every chance you have to speak English and try it, because there is going to have that moment where whoever you're trying to speak with will not have the patience for it. And you might have to go through that too, through that really negative experience for you to learn something from it. But you also can help to break this blockage that you have if you try where you are comfortable with. Because, for example, imagine if you're living in Brazil trying to speak English, right? And then you never get the opportunity to speak with anybody. And when you do you don't try. And then you have a business meeting. And then in a business meeting, the expectations of you communicating fast and clear is so much higher up there than it is on a informal situation, right?
Yeah.
So I feel like people need to have that mindset of, okay, maybe next time I will really need it. And then what am I going to do, right?
Yeah.
Right now, I don't need as much, but I would try kind of mindset.
And I would agree. When I was in the university, I had friends that would practice with Italian students, and they were super nice, and they spoke English, so they could help find a word. And I was really shy, and so I didn't do that as much. So when I had the opportunities to practice, it was like real world applications, like at a restaurant or talking to someone, versus my friends that had practiced, they were so much more confident. So I definitely learned that kind of the hard way through that. That yeah, you should definitely practice, especially in like school setting or with other people.
Yeah.
That way you can make those mistakes because it's a little less embarrassing or stressful than when you're actually like, no, I need to, you know, like when you're need directions or on public transportation, like that's important. And me, a lot of times, you know, I just know that when I travel, I'm probably going to go the wrong way at some point or have to change buses. And it always happens. But, you know, if you just talked, you probably wouldn't have a problem. So that's one of the lessons I've learned.
Something very interesting about that is that when I came to America, I actually spoke some English, and I was in a hotel because I was going through a training. Since I came here as an au pair, you go through 2 weeks, I think, training in New York. No, I was in New Jersey. And then from there you go to the families that you're going to take care of the kids, right? So, and they make sure to put you in a room with people that don't speak any of your language. So I was in my room, had a girl from Czechoslovakia, I think, right? That's the word, Czech, and then there was other Brazilians there and all that, but you don't really stay in the same room as them most of usually. So my aunt, she lives in New York. So it was the first time that I've ever been out of the country. So when I got here, I was like, holy cow, this is a completely different world. Like everything's so different and so clean and so open and all that. And I was in New Jersey, which is compared to Colorado, is not even that clean, not even that open, right? So I wanted to see my aunt before I went to Colorado, where I was going to look with the host family. And my aunt was like, okay, you can meet her at this mall. I was like, sure, I can do that. No, I couldn't. Like, I went, first thing was already even though I spoke some English, it was very broken. And understanding was another level, because once I got inside the airplane, I already didn't understand a word that the how do they call the flight attendants would talk to me, because they speak so freaking fast. So I was already like in trouble there. And then when I was at the hotel, we were I was leaving to go to see my aunt. I'm like, holy cow, I don't even know how bus works here. I can't identify a bus stop. So I kept walking and I was like, is that a bus stop or no? Like, I keep trying to figure it out. And then I stopped at this gas station and I asked the guy, where's the bus stop that I can get this bus to go to New York, which I didn't even understand exactly what was the bus that I was supposed to get either. So I was like, okay. So he gave me all the information the whole time I was looking, like, I have no idea what he just said. I just saw like he pointed that direction and then left and then right. That's all I got it because of the gestures. But he said a bunch of other things that to this day I have no idea what it was. So I was like, okay, I think I got it. So I kept walking and then I got to this place, which was a little box. And there was the bus stop. I was like, is this a bus stop? And then I'm like, and in Brazil, here's the deal. In Brazil, you have a bus stop. So the bus only will stop if you sign to stop. So you need to do this. So the bus knows that they're supposed to stop for you to get in. And inside the bus, you have signs that you pull, and then the bus driver knows that you're supposed to stop, because or else they don't stop. They don't have to. Nobody wants to get in. Nobody wants to get off. And that makes perfect sense to me. In America, bus stop every single bus stop every single bus stop. And they also either to people get in or get off or not. They just stop. They will always stop to any bus stop.
Didn't know
Yeah,
that.
that's a lot of bus stops. in
Yeah,
one
it's weird.
sentence.
Yeah.
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 Yeah. So I asked Nick, like, that doesn't even make sense. It's a waste of time. But in a way, he's like, not really. That's the best way for you to track time. So you always know that at 7:45, that bus is going to stop there. So if you, and you also know how long it's going to take for you to do your whole trip. So it's not like, oh, since they stop every station or bus stop, you know, like it's going to take 45 minutes to get to your location, you know, without, of course, traffic in consideration. Still stupid in my mind, but it's how it works. So I actually got to the bus stop, but as I was sitting there, I was like, I don't even know the bus. And if I ended up somewhere else that I can't even identify and tell my aunt to pick me up or whatever, and I didn't have a cell phone to communicate because I just got there, so I didn't have a cell phone. So like, yeah, I'm going back. So I turned around, went back, went to the hotel and told my aunt, like, I don't think this is gonna work. I don't think I can actually get there by myself. And then I was like, yeah, probably not. I will meet you. So she actually came to the hotel, and then from there we went to this little mall in New Jersey and all that. But but it was interesting because you're saying you get lost and you have that experience, and I had to live that through because I had to, that guy, I would never forget, like he giving me directions. I'm looking at me like, I have no idea what this person is telling me, but okay. So, and then I had like the same situations in the hotel, like people would start talking to me, giving me explanations, and I'm looking at them and it's like, shh, I have no idea. Like, I don't know what they're saying, telling me, but I would just agree. You know, so yeah. And then in the whole, and like in the training, these people said, oh, we have these how do you call the groceries bag here? You have a name for it, the little ones?
Like a tote bag?
Tote bags. So they were saying like they had a tote bag for $1 for you to carry extra stuff because the international flight has one weight and the national flight has a different weight. So since they are not connections, they're actually different flights. We can really use the international weight, or else you're gonna pay extra for the weight, right? So she said that she had this, but I understand that you're supposed to get it later. And no, it was right there, and I didn't, and they didn't have any when I went to look for it. And the hotel didn't have one decent plastic bag to give it to me. So I put my stuff in a plastic bag, and these other two girls are going to Colorado as well. So we were all going to the airport at the same time. The bag was broken. I have another bag. Like I was a freaking mess. Like, and these girls were looking at me and shaking their hair, thinking like, what this girl, you know, like. So I was so impressed because I was like, man, I'm gonna pay an absurd amount in a bag now at the airport. Because in Brazil, like if a bag is $2 worth at the airport, you're gonna pay $50 worth in a bag, right? So like I'm paying so expensive at the airport for a bag. I paid $3 for a bag. $3 freaking dollars. I was like, no, I can't believe I paid only $3.
You went like, you know what? I'll give you 5.
I know, right? It's crazy. So I organized my life there, and those girls were looking like down at me, thinking like, you gotta hurry up, you know, like we gotta get our plane and go to the family and stuff. And I'm thinking, whatever, just go for it, you know, but I can't even tell them to do that because my English was so broken. Anyways, you have all these experiences and you learn so much from them. So it's just a matter, like we keep saying, just keep trying, you know, like, and exposing yourself to those experiences it's very nice.
And how do you feel when people speak to you with a thick accent or broken English, just like generally speaking, as long as they're trying, or like just real life situation, somebody gets you and say something that doesn't really make sense, or how do you feel about it?
I mean, I love it. I find it really endearing. Because I love like culture and the different languages. So personally, like I don't mind it. I just have to listen definitely more carefully. and just be patient. You know, sometimes my brain moves faster and I'm already thinking about what I want to say when someone's talking in English, but I can't do that when they have a heavier accent or something like that. And like sometimes even with Deborah, like sometimes I have to listen a little bit more careful, or I'll have to ask a question. Because I don't understand, or sometimes, you know, there's one word that she doesn't know, and so we like try and figure out what the word she's saying. So to me, I mean, it's definitely more interesting than just talking to someone who's the exact same as you. So, you know, I don't know if everyone shares that view, but I think it's interesting and I like it. So
It's cool. Yeah,
That's nice.
it's funny.
Deborah shared once that she tried to explain to a friend about socks that looked like pants, and it made no sense.
Socks that look like pants. What do you think it is?
Socks that look like pants.
Yeah.
It's a puzzle.
What word was I looking for when I said that?
Socks that look like pants. That's a
And
good one.
Nick knew right away, like.
Yeah, when I described that to Nick knew exactly what I was talking about.
Like, so are you thinking like slippers or like something to put your feet in? Like a wolf.
You're already thinking so much on the thing that for me is just so clear. Those are socks, but they look like pants. You use them, they like socks, but they look like pants.
They keep your feet together? Like
No.
Okay.
Oh, but pants doesn't keep feet together.
But if they're like
No, you put them here and then put them here and they come all the way up here. It looks like that. They are socks, but it looks like pants. Like not like the yes, stockings, tights. Tights, the stockings there.
that's a good one. Yeah.
Stockings and tights are the same thing, right? Or stockings are different.
Like stockings are like, I would say, the thinner material, like that you wear with a skirt and like nice shoes.
Yeah.
And tights are like thicker.
Okay.
Yeah.
More for cold weather.
Yeah.
I see.
Yeah. That's a good one. That's
Right.
funny. I won't
But the
forget that.
funny part is that as soon as I described it to Nick, he's like, "Are you talking about tights?" Like right away, he didn't even take a minute to think about it.
Do you know
And because
why?
he speaks Portuguese, and in Portuguese we call it calça. How do you call it? Meia calça. Meia is socks. Calça is pants.
Okay, so sock
socks
pants.
pants. Yeah.
Sock pants.
So for him, it made sense because he speaks Portuguese.
Yeah, that makes sense. Okay.
Yeah, but that's why when I was teaching English, a lot of the time my students would say, "How can I say bread?" Bread, right? But all in Portuguese. And then I would tell, like, how would you explain how to say bread? Because if you're speaking to a person who doesn't speak Portuguese, you can't ask for the translation. You got to give them a description of what is the word you're looking for. So a lot of the time in English classes, I would to remind myself to ask my students to give me a description instead of a translation, ask me for a translation, because or else they would be like, no use in the United States. Like you can like ask a person to say, how do I say meia calça, you know? They're gonna say, what is meia calça? You know, like they don't know. So you gotta try to describe what is the word you're looking for most of the time. But yeah, it's fun. And the other thing is I use too many words sometimes. So that's why she also gets confused.
What do you mean?
Nick is always like, I already lost you. You already lost me. I have no idea what you're saying because you're talking too much.
Oh, you use more words than you need to communicate what you want. Kind of like that.
Yeah. You need to use less words, and American and English in general, I feel is very straight to the point.
Right.
Yeah. And it's so hard for me because I feel like I'm being rude sometimes, being so direct, especially on text messages. Oh man, I have such a hard time because I'm always like, I feel like I'm being rude if I phrase it that way, but I'm not. It's literally how you guys speak. So
I feel
Yeah.
like if somebody see our text messages, they'll feel like we don't even talk because I know how you text and like I don't mind. So sometimes I just ask a question right away. I don't say like, hi, how are you? And in Brazil,
Yeah.
like it's super rude. If you just send a
Um,
message like,
yeah.
can you get this for me? Like, oh, you
Yeah.
didn't even say hi.
Yeah,
Like, what do you
like
mean?
you have no idea how
You have
many
to
times I need to hold back from saying how are you on a text message. Like this morning.
Sometimes,
Yeah.
and I just like, I'm like, oh, that's cute. But I didn't know why.
That's like this morning, I had to text my realtor, and I was like, "Good morning," and I want to say, "How are you?" I was like, "No, I'm just gonna say, good morning. Nick is gonna be available at this time. We can try to meet up at this time." So for me, it was so hard to skip the "How are you?" But I was like, I gotta skip it, but it's hard. So I feel so rude, even for you, if I'm like texting you and I want to say, can you watch Victor, right? I can't just say, hey, good morning, can you watch Victor for me? I feel like I'm being super rude. I always need to say, hey, how are you? And sometimes I do, sometimes I don't. But man, that's a hard one for me.
No, that's interesting. I mean, and when people ask that, do they expect, is it one of those things like in the US? Because sometimes when you meet someone and you haven't seen them, you say, how are you? But it's not really expected that they give a real answer. They just say, good, fine. In Brazil, do they actually give real answers?
We do.
Or is
We do. It depends on where you are at. Like if with the, yeah, it really depends on the person. If it's a person that you're always in contact with or you work with, they skip the how are you and go straight to the point afterwards. But if it's a person like you haven't really talked to that person in a while, they can say, yeah, I'm good. How are you? And then they go back with the how are you? Yeah, I can do that for you. Or, and then the conversation keeps going. And sometimes it happens that you start having two different conversations at the same time, if to your friends. So for example, if I send to Andre, hey, how are you? Can you check if we can change our podcast? You're gonna reply, hey, I'm good. How are you? Yeah, I can check that. And then I'm gonna reply, yeah, I'm good too. Well, that time is gonna be good for me. And then he's gonna reply, oh, good to hear that you're good. So how is Nick? So your conversation starts at the same time
But
because of all that. How are you?
yeah, generally speaking, men have hard time doing that. While women,
Yeah.
like I don't know how, but like my wife, she's talking about 800 things at the same time. And she says something, I go like, but like, what is the topic? Where does it fit in the conversation? I'm lost. So I don't know if it happens to you, Deborah and Nick, but
Yeah, that's very true. Like
just
if I
like,
send a text to his wife, that's how the conversation probably gonna go along. In his case, he probably just gonna go straight to the point and leave it at that. That's very true. And his wife is great. She's really funny. So yeah, I can totally see how you
really
get
funny.
lost with her. Yeah.
Yes, she's super funny.
Yeah, she's a really funny person.
And about the language thing, I really like the way you described how you feel when somebody speak English or broken English to you. And I feel like a lot of people feel that way, but people are just scared, like no native speakers, like, oh, there's a native speaker. They're going to judge me if I say a wrong word. And I don't see that happening.
No.
That has
Yeah,
never
I think-
happened to me. Like,
yeah. I think very much it's like if you show that you're trying and that you mean well, then it's really hard to be mad at someone for that. Like how can you, I admire that, if anything. I think it takes a lot of courage to do that. And I know I can say that because I've been in the opposite situation once where, I've had that courage and I've tried, but I've also been in the positions where I've been too shy and I haven't done it. So when someone does it, to me, I really admire that. And I try and take them very seriously. And one of the first things, like when I would stay in hostels when I was traveling, someone actually said to me, and one of my hosts was like, have you, do you talk to a lot of people that are not native English speakers? Because you said you're very like patient and very like understanding. And I was like, no, like honestly, I haven't traveled in so long. This is my first day. And when I speak, and if I'm around a lot of people that don't speak English, I speak slower on purpose, so that they have an easier time to understand. So a lot of times they really like that. I don't know if I ever speak too fast for you, but I didn't even think about that with you. But I mean, sometimes you're like, huh? I think you do that. I think we have the most problems like texting. Like sometimes we don't understand each other texting. So like I'll say something and you're just like, what? And I'm like, I don't know how to explain that a different way, but okay. But yeah, in person, I think as long as you're trying, I think that's very admirable. And yeah, so
Yeah.
that's very true. I feel like even in a formal situation, in a company or school or anything, I don't think people ever really judge. I think they may be a little impatient if they need that communication to happen, but judging the fact that you are speaking a broken English, I don't think people really judge that factor. They just impatient that I need to get going here, but judging you as a person, because you don't speak English, I don't think that's a very, very, very impatient, don't like people that are not American or something like that. Like it's the really, really extreme that is really, really hard to find here. Thank God,
But I feel like there is a lot of judgment when it comes from people from the same country, or just like no-native speakers to non-native speakers. Generally
like
speaking.
for Brazilians judging the English of other Brazilians, right?
Yes, there is this girl. She has a huge YouTube channel. I think her name is Marina, maybe. I can find her channel and send it to you. But she's from Russia, and her channel is like huge. She helps lots of people, and all of the negative comments are from Russians. Like all of them are like, oh, you missed a word. Oh, you had an accent. Oh, this happened. And she recorded a video about it. Like just Russians comment my video with negative feedback. And I don't know if that's some sort of jealousy, like, I don't know, like
it can be
negative
constructive. It could be constructive criticisms sometimes, but very hard to pick on that, and maybe she's not asking for that either, right? Constructive criticism needs to come a lot of the time when you actually ask for it. Yeah. But I get it. I agree with you. I feel like most of the time people are judging when they are the same language speakers, like the fact that you said we're different or something. I don't judge, but I think it's so interesting when I notice the different accents. So if you talk to my brother, like Andre, I'm so used to talk to him in English because I taught him English, right? So I'm so used to talk to him in English that I pick up his accent very rarely, like a shock to me. Like I can hear it, but not as strong as my brother. When I talk to my brother in English, like, holy cow, my brother has a strong accent, but I also have a strong accent. But it's interesting because his accent actually stands out to me, right? And more than Andres. But that's because I speak Portuguese with my brother, not English most of the time. So I feel like those are the experiences that I have in those situations. I'm not judging my brother the way he's speaking, but it does stand out to me that his English is different than mine.
Yes, mine is similar to yours because you taught me, so.
Probably, yeah. Probably there is a little bit of it.
And about communication, which is the most important thing when it comes to speaking a different language, what do you think is the accent sound or the accent characteristic that makes communication the hardest for you? Like while we were saying,
I'm gonna get some water for you.
Okay, yeah. So like what kind of accent or what detail in the sounds make it really hard, even when you're speaking to us, like here, we're just having a conversation.
That's a good question. Oh, I'm trying to think of something that I've heard.
That's a hard one to think
Yeah,
of,
it's a good question. It's a good question.
especially when you don't know why the person is pronouncing that word that way. It's kind of hard to pick it up.
I think maybe just with the accent, if there's like a couple words that sound the same together, like when they're kind of, or if you speak faster, I think then it's harder to understand. I can't give like a specific example right now, but I noticed like sometimes just when someone else who's speaking English as a second language speaks faster and then they have an accent, it kind of covers some of the maybe the words or the consonants or the sounds that they're trying to make. So I'm like, oh yeah, I kind of know what you're saying, but I don't know what you're saying. So yeah, this going slower helps. I guess it depends what accent. I don't know.
And I also depend on the context too, because in English there are so many words with similar sounds, like live and leave.
Yeah. So I'm trying to like listen to the accent. I feel like you sound different on like the S sometimes, and maybe
yes. Oh yeah, because I cannot pronounce, like if the word starts with an S, I always put an E in the beginning of the word, and there is only an S there. I do that a lot for sure.
Stress.
Yeah.
Like is stress like this?
Stress. Yeah, you don't have the A. No, you have this stress. Like statistics. Not a statistics. I say statistics.
Yeah.
I say statistics, but it's not a
Statistics.
statistics. Yeah. Statistics.
Yeah.
Statistics.
And sometimes
Just that.
yeah, I feel like
Statistics.
sometimes you do that and sometimes you don't. And so
Yeah.
when you're talking fast and you say a bunch of stuff like that, sometimes it's like, did you mean that? But sometimes I usually figure it out so I don't have to ask. But yeah, I think usually when it's just faster. So
yeah, I probably, and one for me that I know why Portuguese speakers are saying why they are pronouncing words that way. So like I have an easier time understanding people who speaks Portuguese and are speaking English to me than actually like a person who is from, I don't know, Japan is speaking English to me, right? And it's funny because, for example, in Portuguese, there are a few things that I noticed that every Brazilian do. One is the one I do, that is the statistics part, the S in the beginning, because I never realized that until Nick pointed out. Never until someday he did. It's like, oh my gosh, that's true. Like I didn't even know that was a thing. So that, and then in Portuguese, Brazilian speakers, they tend to, in a verb in the past tense that is regular, they tend to make the conjugation of the verb as a syllable in the end of the word. So for example, instead of them saying, I called you, they will say, I called you. Because for them, the ED in the end will become a syllable with the L. You know, it's not going to be, I called you. They're going to say, I called you. So I see that a lot sometimes with some Portuguese speakers.
Like the ED, like needed in all of the words. Work it, leave it.
They will do that with every single word. Yeah, they're gonna do it every single word though. So sometimes Americans, and I experienced that actually. I was doing translation for this company, and this lady, she could speak English that she learned by herself, and that was impressive. But I was talking to her and she was trying to tell this guy that she was going to call him. And then she kept saying, no, that she called him. And then she kept saying, I called him. And then the native speaker was like, you what? So he kept looking, and then I look at him and said, she called him. So, and he's like, oh, okay. So after that, I was talking to her, I said, so just a tip for your English is that when you're conjugating the verb, you don't make that last syllable, that last and as a syllable. You pronounce the word as it is and then make the t sound. So she's like, oh, thank you. It's like, yeah, sure. But I mean, that's very common for Portuguese speakers too. So you didn't experience that with me. And you won't experience that with him because I taught him that. We spent a whole class practicing that.
And I'm gonna say I college you.
I college you. Yeah, I college you. Yeah, I college
Like a
you.
college.
Yeah, college. Yeah, I college you. Because even in our state, the D sounds like a G. So we're not even going to pronounce D as D. We're going to pronounce as G a lot of the time. So then really going to sound like college.
Yeah.
Yes,
Yeah.
that's true. And then that was really good, like the conversation. And the part that stood out to me the most, that I liked the most, was the secret that being nice is more important than speaking other languages.
Yeah. For me was just try, and trying is enough to build that bridge. Like your mom said, I thought that was very cool. Like
Yes.
very, yeah.
And for you, what did you like about it? Is there any, like what was interesting?
About you.
Yeah, it's interesting to hear your your view of what the native speakers may think of, how you speak or your accent. And I think also I think it sounds like it's very universal. Like we both agree that if you're nice and you try and you kind of meet in the middle, then that's when you're going to have a successful communication, even if you don't speak, even if you're not 100% confident or you don't 100% speak the language, you're going to have a better outcome if you at least show that you're trying and are nice, and are patient to maybe them not understanding you, or being understood, because that can be really frustrating. So being open to that and knowing it is a process.
Yeah, it is.
And still,
Yes.
I mean, even though you've been speaking English for a while now, and still I feel like learn things and idiosyncrasies and things like that. Like even a couple of days ago, I said something and you're like, "What is that?"
Oh yeah, you did say something else. Like I don't know what's
I think I said like not hoodwinked, but I said like makeshift.
Makeshift. Yeah, I was like, what is
And I was like,
makeshift?
I don't even know how to describe that. I had to think about that for a minute.
Yeah. It kind of helps you to relearn your own language. It's cool that you said that even though we are in different countries, we speak different languages, we're in different places actually, and we all agreeing in the same thing about language and communication. So that's kind of cool. Yeah.
Yes, that's amazing. And thank you so very much for accepting the invitation and for being here with us. That was awesome, just having you and having you sharing about your travels and your perspective on non-native speakers. And whenever you want to share something, a message about language, learning, or anything, we'll be here, and it will be an honor to have you and to have you sharing.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much.
Yeah, you can keep following him, so you're gonna see your face in his Instagram page now.
Yes, you see your face there.
Yeah, I forgot
All
to
the
tell you
time.
the other day. Sorry.
I know,
You're
no,
gonna be on video.
I did forget about the video part, but that's okay. That's okay.
You can put an emoji on her face just in case. Yeah, don't worry about that part. Well, actually, there is filters on Instagram. Make sure to use them for us. I'm just kidding. Just make sure.
Don't know how to use them.
Yeah, I don't know either.
No, you don't need it. You're good. You're good that way. So thank you very much. And thank you guys for listening or watching, if somebody's watching the video. And if you have any questions, please reach out. Thank you so much.
Bye.